Jake here for American Muscle, and today I'm taking a look at the AWE Track Edition Axleback exhaust with the quad chrome silver tips for the 2016 and newer Camaro SS with the NPP dual mode exhaust. If you want to make some serious noise with a high quality axleback that isn't going to ruin your budget, then look no further than the Track Edition setup from AWE. This is a slick, high quality axleback package. It's going to wake up your Camaro's exhaust and give you a lot more sound, all at a price that undercuts some of the other options in the category. Now, AWE has been making high-quality exhaust for decades, and this system certainly does that reputation justice. They've also been known to bring the volume, which this system does as well. No getting around it, this one is loud. We're going to give this a 4 out of 5 on our Rattle the Windows loudness meter, and let's just say that your neighbors are definitely going to know that something is different about your car. Surprisingly though, it is not as intrusive inside of the cabin as you might expect, but it's still going to have a lot of volume. But man, does it just sounds so good. As you heard from the clips at the beginning of the video, even for an axleback, this has got a great sound to it. It's deep, it's burbly, it's aggressive. It really sounds like a true muscle car inside and out. And I think it really brings a lot more character to the Camaro. Now, since this is an axleback system, this is not going to eliminate your stock catalytic converters, resonators, or mid-pipes. This is only going to swap in place of the mufflers in the rear of the car. So it still will make a big difference in sound. And since this is the Track Edition as well, as you can see, there are no resonators like you get with some other axlebacks. This one just goes straight through. Now, like I mentioned already, and as you can probably see from this one that I got in my hand, this is a really high quality system. The whole thing is made from 3-inch T304 mandrel bent stainless steel, and that means it's going to provide excellent corrosion and rust resistance in addition to excellent exhaust flow. The whole thing is CNC laser cut to provide precise fitment, and the welds are of really nice quality too. It's even made here in the US, and that's a nice added bonus. Now, of course, you get some cool exhaust tips to finish the whole thing off. Set up to mimic the stock dual exit exhaust on the Camaro are these quad chrome exhaust tips. So these are each 4 inches in diameter, and they have this really high polished, almost mirror type finish that really adds a nice visual pop to the rear end of the car. Can't go wrong with a set of polished tips on something like a muscle car. These are also going to set in a staggered formation, just like your stock exhaust, so they're going to fit really nice and flush with the bottom of your bumper as well, and they have that aggressive slash cut, somewhat like your original tips too. This is just enough for people to notice, but not so much that it's going to draw their eye. People are really going to hear it before they see it, but once they notice the difference, they'll be able to tell. It adds a little extra something, I think, to what is otherwise not a very subtle exhaust. They really set the rear of the car off nicely, and they're the perfect finish to this pretty killer setup, and who doesn't like a nice set of mirrored tips? Now, pricing for this system is going to come in at around $925, which is not exactly a drop in the bucket, but it does far undercut some of the other axleback systems out there on the market. However, again, you aren't sacrificing quality here, which is the most important part. Unfortunately, part of the cost savings does come from the loss of that dual mode exhaust setup, but with how good this one sounds, I don't really know if that's too much of a loss. You could also, of course, go with a less expensive option than this, but then you're going to run into lower quality materials. And if you want something that's really going to last, or that's just simply not your style, this is going to be an excellent option for you. Installation is going to come in at a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and it should take you about 2 hours to get everything completed. Now, there is some cutting required in order to remove those stock mufflers from the car, but there are only 2 cuts. They're very easy to make, and you get instructions on how to measure it out included with the kit. You're also going to have to remove the actuators for the exhaust valves, but that's also a simple 1-bolt job. Once those 2 things are done, you're going to get these new pipes with the tips installed, and you can use the included hardware to get everything tightened up. These are also going to use your stock exhaust hanger location, so there's no additional modifications needed to the car itself. But enough talking about it. With that, let's head on over to the install bay now, and we'll show you just how to get it all done.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, an electric ratchet, a hand ratchet, an exhaust hanger remover tool, a wire wheel, a 5/16 ratcheting wrench, a 3/8 to 1/4 inch adapter, an extension, 7, 11, 13, 15, and 16 millimeter sockets, a pair of safety glasses, a marker, a tape measure, a couple zip ties, and a Sawzall. What's up, guys? Today we're going to be installing an exhaust on our Camaro, so let's get started. So our first step to removing our exhaust is going to be to disconnect our valves. Now these are going to be found on the outside of each side tip. So we'll get the harness, press the tab, and disconnect them. So now our first step is going to be to disconnect the wiring harness to our valve controller. So to do that, we're going to remove these two 7mm bolts to clear up some access. You're going to have to take these out later on eventually because we're going to have to slide our exhaust back this way and the valves are going to slide under this. So I'll get a 7mm socket to get these off. Then we can push that back out of the way and then reach in there and disconnect our wire harness. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. So the factory exhaust system has 6 hangers. We have 2 here, 2 here, and then 2 by our tips. So we're gonna remove the inner 4 here. That way we can still have our 2 hangers in the back holding our exhaust up while we disconnect our flanges up front. So we can get the 2 on our passenger side first. So I'll grab an exhaust hanger remover tool and pop off these isolators. And then on this one, the hanger on our pipe's a little longer than the one from our chassis. So we'll pop off our top isolator, and then we can pop it off at the bottom and slide it back on the top. Now we can do the same thing on our driver's side. Now our next step is to remove our brace here. We have 5 13mm bolts holding that in. So I'll get a 13mm socket on an impact gun to get these off. Now our next step is going to be to disconnect our O2 sensors on both sides. Now you can do this either by unscrewing the O2 sensor or simply just unplugging the harness. We're going to unplug the harness. So there's a white tab that you're going to push up and then push in, and then it will separate our connector. So we'll take our white tab, push up on it, and then we can press down and slide our connector out. Now this side's going to be the same thing, just a little deeper in there. Pull back on that tab, and then disconnect our connector. So now we can work on our 2 flanges. We'll get those disconnected with a 15mm socket. I've got a pole jack here to hold the exhaust in place so it doesn't drop down once we disconnect it. And then once we have our 2 flanges disconnected, we'll grab a buddy to help us pull the whole exhaust out of the car. So now on this side, we don't have much clearance, so I'm going to get a 15mm socket with a ratchet on this side, and then we can use our impact gun on this side. So I've got some penetrating lubricant I sprayed on here just to make it a little bit easier to get these off. Now on this side, we can use a 15mm socket on an impact gun to loosen this clamp. So now I have a pole jack set up underneath our muffler to keep it in place. And then we're going to be removing the 2 bolts on our hanger on both sides to release the muffler. So now we can take a 15mm socket on a ratchet to get our 2 nuts off. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. So now would be a good time to grab yourself a buddy, and you can take one end while your buddy takes the others. And then we'll just simply slide it out and remove it from the car. So now with the exhaust removed from our car, we can take our valves off. Now we'll be using a 5/16 inch ratcheting wrench to remove this. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. And now we can remove our final 2 hangers on our stock exhaust using an exhaust hanger remover tool. Now before we start installing our new exhaust, it's important to note that this kit does not allow you to retain your factory valves. AWE does make a valve actuator simulator, which is basically just a bracket that goes on here so you can mount it and plug it in. That way you don't get any check engine lights. You can find those on the site, but they aren't included in this kit. So what we're gonna do is just zip tie this up out of the way to a harness. That way we can still plug it in, not get our check engine lights. We just have to make sure that we're not zip tying over the silver piece because this will still be spinning. So we can take our zip tie and fish it up over our wire harness here. And then we'll take our actuator, we can plug that in and push our tab down here to lock it in place. And then we'll just pull down on our zip tie, making sure to keep it away from our silver piece that will still be spinning. And then we can take our heat shield and bend that back up into position and reinstall our 2 7mm screws. And then we'll take our 7mm socket to tighten these down. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now with our stock exhaust removed, we're gonna come to right behind the rear muffler where we're gonna make our cut for our new exhaust. So now we can grab our tape measure and a marker, and we're gonna measure out 8 inches from the rear muffler back. 8 inches puts us right here, so we'll make our line. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Measure out our 8 inches and mark our spot. So now with our measurements made and our cut lines in place, you can grab yourself a Sawzall or your cutting apparatus of choice and a pair of safety glasses, and we can make our cuts. And now that we have our exhaust flipped over to the other side, to make it a little bit easier to cut, we can make our cut on our other pipe. So now with our cuts made, we're gonna take a wire wheel to clean up our edges a little. So now with our exhaust cut and our edges cleaned up, now's a good time to grab yourself a buddy to help you line up the secondary cats in the front while you get the hangers into the isolators. Now we'll reinstall our 2 15mm nuts on our passenger side secondary cat. Now we'll take a 15mm socket, going back and forth, tightening these down to put even pressure on our flange. And then we'll take a 15mm socket to tighten down the clamp on our driver's side. And now we can reconnect our O2 sensor harness. So we're gonna slide that up out of the way so that it doesn't hang on anything hot or moving. And then we'll just click it in like that. And now we can reinstall our brace with our 5 13mm bolts. And then we'll just make sure all of our holes are centered. And then take our 13mm socket to tighten these bolts down. Now our next step is to install our tailpipes. but before we can do that, we have to install our tailpipe adapter. Now this is a 2 3/4 inch to 3 inch adapter that's going to slide over our stock exhaust pipe, and then our aftermarket tailpipe will slide right over this adapter. So now we can take our adapter and we're going to slide that over the edge of our stock exhaust, and then we'll take our 3 inch clamp, and now we can grab our tailpipe. We're going to be putting our hanger into our isolator first. And then we can slide that over our adapter. And then once we have that in place, we can grab our clamp, slide that over the edge of our pipe, and then we'll take a 16mm socket to tighten this down. Next, we can install our hanger bracket. So we're going to slide this over our hanger first, and then we'll raise it up to line up with the studs. And then we can grab our two 15mm nuts and put onto our studs. And then we'll grab our 15mm socket to tighten these down. So next we can install our tips. So we have our bolt here that's going to lock into the square groove. And then we can grab our nut for the other side. And then once we have that threaded on, we can slide our tip into place. And then we're going to be using an 11mm socket on our nut to tighten that down. And then we'll do that same thing for our other tip. And then once we're done with this side, we can do the same thing on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the AWE Track Edition axle back exhaust with quad chrome silver tips for your 2016 and newer 6.2 liter Camaro with NPP dual mode exhaust. Thank you for watching, and remember, for all things Camaro, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.